Hello, hello, and welcome. This is the Lume Plotters. My name is Ralph.
I'm Martin, and we have a special guest today.
Hello.
Maybe you can tell by his voice who this is already, if you've been to our local Timepiece 360.
Is that a second plug?
It's a whole episode of plug, it seems. So
It's
introduce
great
yourself.
to be here. So this is Khaled, Khaled and Said from Timepiece 360. And I'm very excited to be on episode number
Six.
six. All right, so six is not bad. Would have been nice to be episode 2, but I'll take 6.
It took some time to get going. We needed the momentum, right, before we could have such heavy hitters as yourself on.
Not at all. But generally, I think this, what you guys are doing, I've said it a few times, and I genuinely mean it. I think it's very exciting what you guys are doing. I think there's a gap and a void when it comes to content in the Middle East. There's a few people doing it, but space for much, much more. So well done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. And then there's so much more to come, right? So many things.
Exactly. So let's start first. We're going to ask Khaled a number of questions, but first, as we usually do, what are we all wearing?
I go first?
Sure. Yes, as a guest.
Because I'm the guest.
Special watch, I see.
Yes. So this is, I keep forgetting, this is a podcast, so you can't actually see.
Yeah.
So this is the Ming, the 1709.
Yeah.
Bought from TP auctions. So I do buy my watches from the auctions too. No, I just like it. I love the aesthetics.
It's a really cool watch.
And the kind of the laser etched indices. The blue
dial is lovely, yeah.
And the size. So I think
what is this, 38, 30?
Yeah, I think it's 38 spot something. So it's for me, because I have small wrists, it sits very nice on the wrist.
It looks very good.
And it's unusual enough to kind of get people asking, and it has no date.
Which is my favorite
I've heard
thing.
you and your love for dates.
I forgot. I'm in the minority here.
Exactly. Yeah, you are the minority. So I'm also wearing no date. Also purchased from TP Auctions. Picked up today. This is for the listeners at home that know. I mentioned last time I sold my Tudor Pelagos 39. I have replaced it with a Tudor Pelagos FXD. Specifically the MN21 variety, which is the original, the first one that came out. So picked up from Timepiece Auctions as well.
So we were saying earlier, you kind of broke your own rules, right?
I did. I tend to go for smaller watches. The reason I got the Pelagos 39 over the FXD to begin with, and then I just said, screw it, I'm going to do whatever I want. And I bought a hunking big 42 millimeter, 52 millimeter lug to lug monstrosity. And I love it.
You've worn 42 before?
I had the old Pelagos, which was the exact same size as this, but
you've
much
had the old,
thicker.
yeah, it's thicker.
I sold that to you back in like 2015.
Yeah.
So I'm used to the size, but now I've been downsizing. So this is going the opposite direction.
Right.
And lastly,
me, I'm wearing my H. Moser Heritage Dual Time on a Tropic rubber strap. AliExpress is your friend. Really nice. I like it. Just wanted to show it to Khaled today with a rubber strap, so that's why I brought that one.
Yeah. So I thought I was crazy wearing a ceramic Submariner on like a $10 NATO strap, and this guy comes and overcuts me on the price of the watch, undercuts me on the price of the strap.
$9 shipped.
We were checking the quality of the strap, and for what you pay and what you get, it's really, really, really good.
Yeah.
And I brought one of my original Swiss-made Tropic straps, the rubber straps, and we compared the two, and they're basically identical. Mm-hmm. So it was very, very difficult to see.
You have to be selective. I mean, there's lots of cheap stuff around as well, so you have to make sure that you get the right supplier. But
yeah. And we don't know, longevity and things like this could be a question. I don't know how long you've had it. How long have you been wearing it?
1 week.
Okay, so we don't know the
long-term
5 years time if it's going to be,
But it's the third generation apparently of that Tropic strap. It's this fluoro material. Yeah, so there's FKM, there's other silicone and stuff, but this is now the best material apparently. So who knows?
Even if it isn't at $9, you can afford to get it and it wears away. Because by the time it wears away, or you'd want a different color anyway.
The only thing you don't want is that it falls off your wrist while you're wearing it. That could cost you the watch.
All right, so as we are on a time crunch, let us ask you some questions. So first, do you want to introduce yourself briefly. You already did that. Tell us, how did you get into watches? Why watches? What drew you to watches?
All right. So in essence, how we started. So when we started so let me admit this. So when we started Timepiece 360, I started it. It wasn't a business of passion. It was more a business of opportunity. And that's really how we started Timepiece 360. Previous to that, actually, this is my 10-year anniversary this year of leaving my corporate world. So
congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's up and downs. But I used to work in investment banking. So I did over a decade in the world of investment banking. So in the world of investment banking, watches were a tool for how big your bonus was, let's say, right? So you'd know if someone did well at the beginning of the or at the end of the year, going on to the next year, depending on what watch you bought. So I grew. Let's say I didn't grow up around watches, but I spent 10 years around watches, so I knew watches pretty well, but really wasn't into horology that much. Part of my job is I moved to Dubai in the late 2000s, spent a few years here, and the amazing thing about banking is that, there are a lot of good things about banking. The two bad things about banking is that they work you hard enough not to think about leaving, and they pay you well enough to make it very difficult to leave. Mm-hmm. So I got an opportunity after spending a bit of time in Dubai. So I used to trade, actually. So those who don't know, so I used to be an equity trader. So I used to work on a trading desk covering the Middle East. Middle East at the time that wasn't doing very well. So in short, they closed down the desk and I got made redundant. And I'd always been thinking about leaving, but I never really had the let's say, what's the right word? Which is, I've never really had the courage, let's say, to do it. So this was a good opportunity for me. We were a young family. My wife was very supportive. I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I thought, if I'm going to do it, I was about 29 then. This was the only time I would be able to do it. So we said, why not? So I spent about 2 to 3 years trying different things. First 2 to 3 years. First year was actually working out what it is I could do. Mm-hmm. Moving from corporate life to business life, whatever it is, it's just worlds apart. Very, very, very different. In a corporate world, everything is done for you. You're a small fish in a huge pond. Mm-hmm. So you're very focused on what you do. In the world of entrepreneurship or business world, you do everything, right? You do from sweeping the floors to cleaning the cups to delivering to everything. So it was a big shock to me, that part of it. It took me a year to kind of start figuring out what I wanted to do. It took me the second year to start doing stuff.
What? Can you give us an example? What did you do?
So what other businesses did we start? Yeah, all right. So I invested into a singles origin business. So a good friend of mine at the time had started a single origin business, which means, for example, they started off with salt. They were sourcing salt from one farm somewhere in South America. Mm-hmm. And then we went on to sugar. I think honey they did afterwards. So I invested and started with those for a while. I launched the other main businesses we did. I started a fitness education business with actually family members, which is still running, but I left it quite a while back. I started a business with my wife. She was a synchronized swimmer, professional synchronized swimmer. She was an Olympian for Egypt at the time when she was young. So synchro was a big part of her life growing up. When we moved out here, it didn't exist. So we started a very left field but we started a synchronized swimming school. And we grew that to becoming a decent sized business. We were running every day of the week. We had around 8-9 coaches at the time. So I did that. And I did 1 or 2 other small things. But it was a big learning experience. I failed miserably in some stuff. I lost some close friends. Business really challenges everything you do. So people who at the time we're very close. We did stuff together. We kind of lost friendship through business. So it's a big learning experience. And through that, watches was one of the things where I identified that at the time in the UK, which is where I grew up, things like Watchfinder were doing very, very well. This concept and notion of not just pre-owned, but certified pre-owned was growing really, really rapidly. And in the UAE, it didn't really exist. The only thing you had, which was pre-owned, was the gold souk. And then there was a big gap.
And at gold souk, it was hit or miss. You could get something fake, you could get something real. You had no real, not certification, but like no real, how do I say it? You weren't certain of anything, right? Because a gold souk is someplace today. It's still to this day. You can go and you can buy a fake Rolex and a real Rolex. 2 stores next to each other.
That's not really 2 stores. I think you have to go to the back room,
of
some dodgy apartment somewhere. But it's
still possible, right? So it's still got a little bit of uncertainty in it.
The gold souk is, I would describe it more as a place for wholesale business.
Yeah.
So they focus more B2B. They sell to customers, but as a customer, if you're buying a watch, whether you're buying a 5,000 dirham watch or a 2,000 or a 15 or a 100,000 dirham watch, part of it is the experience and the customer service that you get around buying, right, the watch.
Yep.
And you don't get that in the gold souk.
Yeah.
It's great for a treasure hunt. You will go there and you will find some very, very cool stuff there. But so we wanted to kind of grow this idea of certified pre-owned watches came about because of what was going on in the UK at the time. It didn't really exist. And that was kind of the seed of the idea. Of where the concept and the idea came from.
And I have to say, I remember when I was here 2015 buying my first watch, and I did a quick search, and you were one of the first, and if not the only, search result in Google.
Yeah, so when we started, all right, so that was the seed and the idea. How we started, so it was me and another friend who'd been doing, let's say, quote-unquote business for a while. So the idea first was Timepiece would be a marketplace. We didn't know anything about watches. We had no watches. We didn't even know how to buy a watch. But we felt the idea was a good one. So we thought, well, let's be a marketplace.
This was Adel or no?
No, this is pre-Adel.
Okay.
So this was with another gentleman. So the idea was to be a marketplace. To be a marketplace, what did we have to do? We had to go out and convince other dealers to put their watches on our platform. So we did that. So we went to the gold souk, went to other places. We hit up everyone we knew and everyone said no. This notion and idea of transparency, why would I put my watches on a website so other people can see the price and my neighbor can see the price? No, not interested. So everyone said no, except Adnan Jewelry. So that's how we met
Adel. So for those who don't know, Adel is the owner of Adnan Jewelry, owner, proprietor, and he still is doing in the jewelry
and a shareholder
business.
in Timepiece 360. Yeah. So Adil was the only person who said, yes, I'm in, here are my watches, put it up on your website. And that's how we started. So we started actually with only one dealer. We started with Adil's watches. It was probably around 100 watches. No, probably started just under 100 watches at the time, which was his whole stock. So he said, come, upload, let's work, let's start. And it took us around 3 months before we sold our first watch. Timepiece 360.
So I have to mention that the beauty of this was I had zero interest in jewelry. I found Timepiece 360. So Timepiece 360 at the time was in Adnan Jewelry, right? So I went in there.
Bootstrapped.
Exactly. And looking for a watch. And what did I leave with? I left with a ring for my wife, earrings, and still to this day I'm dealing with Adel. My wife wanted a necklace. I sent Adel a message, says, can you make me this? And he said, of course. And 2 weeks later, I had a necklace in my hand.
Yeah, Adil's an amazing gentleman. Adil, he's a second generation jeweler. And him and his brothers have stores across Dubai. And he's been doing watches for 20 to 30 years. So really, he was the guy who really helped us kickstart Timepiece 360 because he's the one who had the knowledge, the product knowledge for buying and selling. And really, that's how we started. And he went from being a dealer on our platform to later on a shareholder and core investor in the business.
Very cool.
I also bought a watch from, my wife bought a watch from Adel. Yeah, I remember that, a nice Rolex Datejust that she still has. Very nice one. With that, did you become eventually a watch enthusiast? Because you said you started that without actually having a passion for watches yet, but that has changed.
100%. So that's why I was saying what started out was more of a business opportunity, but what it grew into was genuinely an interest into horology, but also the concept of time, right? So over the last few years, I guess as you get older, you start to look things on deeper levels, and this first of all with watches and horology, this idea that you have something on your wrist, you have something on your wrist, I do too, with technology that, we live in a day and age now where I had a call earlier, things change on a daily basis, right? So technology changes every day. The tech revolution, I tell my kids, about, the VHS player, right? So, when we used to watch videos years and years ago, though we didn't even have, online or DVDs, we had VHS players. And I tell this to my kids and they look at me like, I'm an alien. I showed them an LP record for the first time. They had no idea. So the pace at which technology changes now is crazy. Yeah. But the one thing that you have on your wrist, or all three of us actually have on our wrist, is a constant reminder that, this technology hasn't changed for the last 150 to 200 years. Yeah. And in a day and age today where you can actually be a part of something which, first of all, involves your hands, with watchmakers, is very cool. And there's very few industries today which are still very much use of their hands. And still to have something on your wrist with a technology that it evolves, but it's still 150 to 200 years old. For me, always gives me that kind of reality check. Yeah.
And for this, by the way, do your kids have watches? Can they read watches?
Yeah. So are they into watches?
Are they into watches? How old are they? Start with that.
Yeah, so 13, 11, and 3.
Okay.
So the middle one is gunning for Noah's job. He reckons he could be a marketing brain. He says, give me TikTok, I'll do it all for you. So they do know quite a bit about watches, just because we talk about it at home. But yeah, so the enthusiasm and interest in horology grew, but also not just because of that, but also the people, right? So the people that genuinely we've met since we've started, I've known you since the days of the JBR. Yeah. I mean, Ralph, we first met you since the days of the JBR. So a lot of it is...
It's coming on 10 years, exactly.
Coming on 10 years, and these are people that have genuine passion. So what we've seen in the last few years also with watches is very strange. The hype that has happened with watches means that we've seen also a new breed of people come into watches who are more interested in the profit than they are in the watchmaking. But within that, there's a core strong group of people who genuinely love horology, watches, what they stand for, what they are. And really it's grown from there. And people form a big factor of what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So talking about people, people have different tastes in watches, right? There's your people who want the high pieces that everybody wants, which
and you mentioned this before. I think Rolex is like 90% of your market, right? Your sales.
Yeah. But what is the oddest watch that you have ever sold? The weirdest one?
The weirdest watch we've ever sold?
Mm-hmm. It's like the craziest one that you think like, oh my God, why would anybody wear this, basically?
I'd have to ask Dia. Look, what we've learned over the last few years is that what we like, what we personally like or don't like shouldn't impact what we actually put out on our display on our website.
Oh, absolutely, no.
And we've learned that a hard way, although what you say is also true. Like it or don't like it, Rolex is and looks like it will always form a big portion of our sales. But what is the strangest one? I forgot the brand. We had this watch. It was huge to sit on the wrist. It was square. And it was like those, it was split into 1, 2, 3. It was split into 9 smaller boxes. No, split into 8 smaller boxes with one gap. And it's one of those where you move the, I forgot what they called, not a Rubik's Cube, but where you slide
the puzzle. The puzzle.
Yeah, it's like a puzzle. It's like a sliding puzzle. So it had 8 8 colors with sliding puzzles. The watch was about 70 millimeter. It was huge.
That's humongous,
and it had, for each square, it had a time zone. So it was like a multi-time zone watch.
Which reminds me of that Jacob & Co.
Jacob
the 5
Co. one,
times.
But it wasn't a Jacob & Co. I can't remember what it was. It was a hideous watch, to be honest. We
no
had it for a
offense to
while.
the seller.
But the person who bought it, which made me believe, the person who bought it was genuinely ecstatic. He'd been looking for this watch for such a long time.
It just shows you it's a weird world, right?
Absolutely, and
it is. It's a really, really weird world. Look, the trend is a trend. I always tell Martin when he asks, 15% of our inventory is Rolex. Over 80% of our sales is Rolex.
Okay.
We've tried changing that dynamic so many different times.
Yeah.
You know, we stock over 50 brands of watches. We've tried to push other brands, and it hurts our sales, right? So, you know, but this is why I think it comes through content, right? Content creators and people such as yourselves and others help educate people.
Let me ask you a question based on
I think appreciation of different kinds of watches and different brands of watches comes from knowledge, right? And knowing about these brands, knowing that other people like these brands, that they also have a passionate following, not just the big brands that we all know, but also the more
and Khaled has done it, and Timepiece 360 has done an excellent job trying to push this knowledge for the listeners that don't know. And Ralph and I both have done videos with Timepiece 360 showcasing certain watches and our top picks and things like this for certain auctions. And without that knowledge, people wouldn't know what is cool. You know, you look at a Rolex price and all of a sudden that's what you want to have because there's Rolex.
Yeah. But I was going to say it needs it's a big tidal shift, and it's not something that will happen overnight, and it needs you guys and other people and everyone of the world to talk about the other brands and value for money, right? I look at the last 3 years when you look at some watches, you know, when you're paying for steel sports watches closer to 100,000 dirhams, that's a lot of money, and with that amount of money.
And
there's a lot of choice.
Way higher too. They were up at 200K for a Royal Oak.
Certain models, but I'm just the pure concept of, you know, one watch for 100,000, or there are other brands and models, superior movements, you know. But it's that, you know.
But concept. That's also why Rolex is so weird, because you have people.
I didn't say Rolex, by the way. You said
no. I'm saying Rolex right now. I said that's why Rolex is so weird, is because you have the entry level person that gets in. They know Rolex. They want Rolex. Then you go up, you climb the ladder, you learn everything. And what do you end up with? Rolex. Because you understand the concept, why it's so awesome, right? And many big collectors have done this, right? Of course, they end up in vintage Rolex and other areas of rare Rolex. But still, they end up with the same brand they start with.
It depends. I think also with the age, certain things become more interesting eventually, right? So dress watches are not interesting. Maybe once you reach a more settled age, or you are moving up the boardroom or something else, then you suddenly think like, well, I better wear a dress watch or something with a leather strap rather than a sports watch, right? So certain things can change as well as you evolve as a person, as you evolve as a watch enthusiast. So Khaled, how often are you tempted when you have a watch coming in and saying like, I want that watch for myself?
Exhibit A on his wrist right now, the main. But
I have people in the team to keep me in check, which is Dia. So tempted a lot. More so when we first started, it was not much easier. It was just me and the other gentleman and Adil. So it was much more tempting, much easier to do. Today is very difficult to do, but I buy a watch like anyone else would do. So we have a small scheme for employees in terms of purchasing watches here.
That's good.
But yeah, like I bid in the auction, like, you know, if I'm interested in the watch, like anyone else, or if I'm trading a watch, like you, Martin, DR kills me too on the pricing, not just you, right?
So you're buying and selling.
I don't think I've ever made a watch with. I think last 4 years, I've lost the watch with every watch I've traded. So, it's we treat it the same.
So does it mean when you deal with watches every day and with all of these wonderful watches that you have around, does it make you numb to this specific watch that could be such a big piece, the grail watch as we call it, for the one that people want to aspire to, that they save for 20 years and then they finally buy, and you handle them on a daily basis, more or less? Is that something that makes you a bit numb to it, or is it still?
Honestly, it's exciting, right? It genuinely is. Today, like 6-7 years ago, it's just as exciting as it was then when a watch comes. Today, I think the gentleman's gone, but he's selling a watch. He was selling an Omega Speedmaster. I think it was one of the tributes to Schumacher, and it's the red dial. I got really excited, right? We don't get too many of them. They're very cool pieces. It's more of a burgundy color, small piece, but still it gets me excited. Certain watches that come in. We got a Hulk the other day. Okay, it's not a wow watch, but it's the first one we bought in months at a reasonable rate. I got really excited. For now, the auction nowadays, the watch, when people bring in watches, generally we get pieces that we've never, some pieces that we've never seen before, or pieces that we don't see that often. We as a whole team still get very excited. So I don't think the numbness goes away, and I think we're very blessed to be working in an industry and a job which allows us, to be passionate about something, and like you said, enjoy it and appreciate the pieces that come in.
Oh, that's very nice. And then that's one last question.
Are you going to ask? Okay, go.
Or if you want to go, then you do the last question.
All right. I wanted to ask quickly, quick, what is it called? Quick fire round.
Quick fire. Okay, so one-worded answers?
Roughly.
All right.
Most expensive watch you've sold on TP360 throughout the entire history of it? 10 years.
But I can't remember which model.
Okay.
But it was. You want to know the price?
Roundabout.
Huh?
Roundabout price.
Yeah, no, it was around. I think it was around 700,000 dirhams.
Okay.
700,000. All right.
Cheapest watch you've ever sold?
Cheapest watch we've ever sold?
Cheapest watch sold?
I don't know. Auction, 200 dirhams, I think.
200 dirhams. So we have everything from $1 million to 200.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
We treat them all the same.
And that's the funny thing is you do, and you say this as, but no, I see them. Ralph sold his Timex X Hodinky, and just the way they present it in the case, it's the exact same way as you would present anything else, and that kind of is super cool to me.
It's important.
But all right, you had another question, Ralph, before we wrap up?
No, basically that's it. Thank you very much for your time. I think we are at the time limit. So
yes, I did want to mention one more thing, is that for those listening to the podcast, also do check out Timepiece 360's Instagram page, because we are recording this. It should go onto their Instagram page as well as their YouTube. So you will see us actually conducting the interview, which is a rare special occasion. And then, or if you just listen to it, then we're Timepiece 360 on Instagram, right?
Yes.
So give them a follow and come visit them in.
Noha nodded, so that means yes.
Yes.
And you might bump into us when you come here.
I hope so.
We seem to be here a lot.
You have your Tuesday slots, right?
Yes, exactly.
Permanent position.
All right.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it. Keep doing what you're doing, and keep growing the watch community.
And thanks for agreeing to be on.
Always my pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.